Our next guest was inside the room as the president was laying out his immigration framework. GOP Senator Marco Rubio joins us now to react. Good morning to you, Senator. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it is, if you don't like the hot.
Beautiful.
Yeah, don't do it every day, though.
Right.
What is your reaction, especially to his immigration plan?
So it's interesting. It's if you think about the things he's proposing, getting rid of the visa lottery, the 2013 bill did that. Democrats have supported that before. Limiting family migration to the nuclear family. Democrats supported that in 2013. Everybody talks about the Gang of Eight bill. That was in the Gang of Eight bill.
So why aren't they supporting it now?
Well, I think part of it is because it's Donald Trump, obviously, and part of it is because their base is demanding it, that they can't give on anything. They didn't want a clean DREAM Act, which is not a reasonable proposal. And by the way, neither is just do border only in the sense that getting it passed. I think we need to do border, and that should be our priority because we should be doing that no matter how many illegal immigrants are in America or not in America. That's a fundamental obligation of the federal government. So I support all four of those pillars, but I think we have to have a plan B in case it has to be something more limited, like border security, and then something like codifying DACA, but maybe not path to citizenship. You know, we can debate that part, but we have to have a plan B, even as they pursue plan A.
Well, you know, when the president says 1.8 million, so he thinks that's roughly the number of people he had brought as young kids, who are now young adults in many cases, through no fault of their own. So he says, for a lot of conservatives, that's a no-go.
Yeah, well,
and they're angry.
Understand 1.8 is more than what Obama did under DACA. You know, under DACA, about 670,000 people signed up for it. This is actually opening it up, not just for people that applied, but for people that didn't apply. So it goes beyond anything Obama did, and apparently that is not enough for some of the people on the Democratic Party, and it just shows you how difficult this issue is to make progress. And you're right. Look, there's a number of my colleagues that are against pathway to citizenship. They're fine with potential legalization, but not pathway. So we've got some issues to work through, which is why I say we got to have a plan B, because you don't want to get to March 5th and see a bunch of people fired from their jobs.
February 8th.
Well, February 8th is when we're supposed to start that debate, right? And one more point I would make, a lot of talk about people that broke the law. The one thing that I think has allowed the president and many Republicans to move on the DREAM Act population is if you were 7 years old or 8 years old when you came here, you didn't commit the crime. Your parents might have, because they're the ones that brought you, but not you yourself. I mean, you had to go wherever they took you. And so I think there's an acknowledgement that we'll treat that group differently as long as they meet the other criteria. But again, you know, it's you know, if you would have told anyone a year ago that Donald Trump was going to propose 1.8 million people pathway to citizenship, nobody would have thought that was possible. And just to tell you how things are in this town today, that is being railed upon against by the Democrats and the left. So it just shows you how hard this issue is.
Aside from his immigration push, what did you make of his tenor? It was very disciplined for Donald Trump, his speech before the joint session. Yeah,
you know, I think I've seen a number of his speeches, obviously, having campaigned against them, and then obviously throughout the elections and into his first year of presidency. I thought it's probably the best speech he gave in terms of creating a concise vision forward for the year to come. You leave that knowing that what he wants to do this year, he wants to take on drug dealers. He wants to deal with immigration. He wants to do infrastructure.
Justice reform.
He mentioned that. And, of course, he's in favor of paid family leave, which I think there's a way to do it, by the way, that's pro-business. That's not there's a couple of ideas out there floating that to do it that way. Prescription drug costs. So it gives you a roadmap moving forward, and realizing that for the next 12 months, everything we have to tackle is going to require 60 votes in the Senate. So it's going to require some level of bipartisan cooperation. So I think you leave that speech knowing clearly what it is he thinks the next 12 months should be about.
Senator, you had a common sense coalition get together and end the lockout. And there's a sense General Manchin says, we're getting together again. We've already gotten together since. Do you think there might be a middle? There might be a middle emerging that is sick of leadership?
Well, understand that I think the purpose of that group, and I've been involved in many of those meetings, is not to come up with a bill and say, here's the gang of 20. You know, it is to say, here's the starting point. Here's what we know we agree on. We have to do something on the border, and we want to make sure that on March 5th or whenever, we don't have 670,000 people that are in school or currently employed lose their work status. The president wants to do that too. Let's start there, and then let the Senate work its will. You know, that's why we have this process where you have votes, and I think that's what that group is really about. And hopefully we can come up with something that makes sense and is good for America. And that means not everyone's not going to get some, everything they want.
I always feel sorry for someone when they're giving a speech and they're saying something that is just so noteworthy and something they've worked so hard on. And you had that moment when you reached for the water and people focused on you reaching on for the water. It was a Saturday Night Live thing. I remember when Ted Cruz was campaigning and he was giving a speech and he had something white on his lip and everyone was focusing on that. Well, last night, the Democrats had an opportunity to give their speech. And here is Representative Joe Kennedy giving the rebuttal last night. And he had chapstick or something that was glossy and shiny on his lips. And people are
in the corners.
Yeah, the corners. And people are making fun of him, saying, what did he eat before? Or, you know, that kind of thing. What's your reaction?
Yeah, and I would say that this was entertainment. That would be something we can spend time on. But this is like, we're having conversations about public policy in the most important country in the world. I know that sounds like high-minded or whatever, but that's a tough job, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of the people making fun of him on Twitter have never exposed themselves for anything. I mean, it's easy to stand behind a key or sit behind a keyboard and be snarky.
But that's
put
just
yourself
Twitter.
out.
That's Twitter. That's the
well, not just
social
Twitter.
media.
I mean, just anything. You know, put yourself out there. If you're that great in what you do, it's
you think
almost
it's
like
bothering him this morning, or does he not care?
I don't know if he cares. I didn't care. We raised a bunch of money off the water.
By the way, President Trump had the same thing happen to him with water when he came back to recap his speech. Everyone focused on how he picked up the water.
I ruined water forever, I think.
Senator, thanks so much. It's great to see you again, and I'm glad you can get back there for another 6 years.
Thank you so much.